Thank you for having me, and I'm thrilled to be a part of this panel. I have had both of these men on my radio show, and I enjoy dialoguing with them a great deal, and I will tonight. I'm debating whether it's moral to react to anything that Christopher said, since he went first and he had nothing to react to what we said. So I will choose the easy way out and both react to what he said and offer some other thoughts. And I will react immediately in this way. He said, and if I jotted it down quickly enough, if you are prepared to believe that, namely that there is a good God who governs the universe, created human beings and so on, then you are prepared to believe absolutely anything. In reality, what I have found in my life is that the people who are most prepared to believe anything idiotic are the secular. In the United States of America and Western Europe, you are far more likely to believe nonsense if you are a secular human than if you are a religious Jew or Christian. The nonsense that religious Jews or Christians may believe in, and even assuming it is nonsense, is quite constricted to a handful of theological premises. But if I had to bet my entire, well, I was going to say my house mortgage, but it's right now, given the housing crisis, that there wouldn't be much to bet. But in any event, if I had to bet everything that I have on the following proposition, that if you took 1,000 American college students who were regular church attenders and 1,000 completely secular college students from the same socioeconomic backgrounds and asked them a whole host of questions, it is no doubt in my mind, and no doubt in my mind that Christopher Hitchens would find that the answers given by the ones who went to church were far more rational. For example, when I went to Columbia University, a bastion of secular thought, I was told as a given that men and women were basically the same. You had to be secular and intellectual to believe such drivel. Religious people knew this was nonsense. Today, I believe that the hysteria over global warming is indeed hysteria. You are far more likely to believe that hysteria if you are secular than if you are religious. G.K. Chesterton was entirely right, entirely, that when people stop believing in God, they don't believe in nothing, they believe in anything. The track record of the secular world's belief in idiocy overwhelms the Judeo-Christian world's beliefs in idiocy. And that's the only world that I am defending tonight, and specifically the Jewish one, the Jewish conception of God. But I will take the Judeo-Christian, Western European, and American right now as my model for a person who is far more likely to believe rationally about life and morally about life. I was also taught at Columbia University that the United States and the Soviet Union were morally equivalent. Religious people didn't believe that by and large. The secular believed that. As for the track record of morality, which we'll get to later, the secular make most religious people look like Boy Scouts. The record of secular, of atheistic murder, torture, mass murder, and mass torture dwarfs all the religions in all of history combined. And that's in only 100 years of communism and Nazism. So I don't know where he got that from. If his issue is who's more likely to have rational conclusions about life, he has no good neighbors. He is stuck with a world that when it drops God, it drops wisdom. There are good people who are atheists, and there are twits who are religious. But there is no wisdom in the atheist and secular worlds. None. That is why we live in the age of stupidity in America today. The age that does believe that if you give a girl trucks, she will grow up to play with trucks. And if you give a boy dolls, he will grow up to play with dolls. Only the secular believe that. The religious scratch their heads how people could believe such nonsense. Now, as to the larger issue of God's existence. To be an atheist is to believe that everything came from nothing. Since I cannot prove God, and he cannot disprove God, and he cannot prove how anything came about, we now enter the world of only common sense and likelihood. On the issue of common sense and likelihood, I simply ask you if you believe that it is more likely that everything, and I mean everything, came about on its own. That is what Christopher Hitchens and all atheists believe. It all came about on its own. But nothing physical comes from nothing. Nothing does. So it is a leap of faith that absolutely dwarfs my leap of faith, and I acknowledge it's a leap of faith that there is a good God who governs the universe. I fully do. I accept Rabbi Milton Steinberg's great statement, which I will offer as in just a nutshell form. I will paraphrase. The believer in God has to account for one thing: the existence of unjust suffering. The atheist, however, has to account for the existence of everything else. That is so powerful to me as to be inherently persuasive. I fully acknowledge the weakness in the religious belief. I fully acknowledge it. That if I believe there is a God, I have to somehow deal with children with cancer and tsunamis and so on. And every religious person acknowledges that difficulty, or every thinking religious person. But the atheist has to account for everything else. We went from nothing to Bach is a belief that he has. That's rational. We're the ones who make strange, irrational leaps of faith, not the atheist. Yes, we went from absolutely nothing, or even for that matter, from a rock to Beethoven's Ninth on its own. Okay? If you believe that, I conclude, then you are absolutely prepared to believe anything.